Okay, so let's go ahead and practice using the ElastiCache service by creating our first Redis database. So let's get started. And in this, we have the option to create a cluster. It can be either a Redis or a Memcached cluster. And I click on Create Cluster. We'll just go ahead with the Redis cluster setup. You can have fun and look at the options for Memcached. So this is the cluster creation UI. And we're going to configure and create a new cluster, but we could restore from backups if we had created a backups from before. Now we have the chance to either enable the cluster mode, and this is to have multiple replications happening, and it's going to enhance scalability and availability, or to disable it, and you'll have a single shard, a single node group, and you have at least maximum one primary node and up to 5 read replicas. To keep it simple and to keep it free, we'll disable the cluster mode. Next, cluster info, so demo Redis. Then the location, so whether or not we want this ElastiCache service to be on the cloud or on your premises, thanks to the service called AWS Outpost. We'll keep it simple as well, and because we don't have on-premises anyway, we'll use the cloud. Whether or not we want to be multi-AZ, so multi-AZ will provide you enhanced availability through automatic failover to your read replica across AZ, or in case of a primary node failover, but I will disable it, okay? And the reason I do so is that because we would pay more otherwise, and we're just going through the demo of creating an ElastiCache cluster anyway. And this auto failover enables you to get high availability by failing automatically to your read replica in case of a primary node failover. I can keep it as is for now. The cluster settings, so we specify the engine version, the port, we leave everything as default, the parameter groups, as well as the node type. So this time, the node type is way too high for our needs. So we can use a micro type of cache, okay? And I'll use a T2 micro, because I know it's in a free tier, but I guess the other ones may be as well. Number of replicas is between 0 and 5. So what's happening is that if you have 2 replicas, then of course you're going to be in a multi-AZ kind of settings, okay? But if you set up 0 read replica, then multi-AZ cannot be enabled. And so you have these options completely disabled, and that makes sense, right? So we want to be again within the free tier, so I will not have any replicas, so we'll leave the number as 0. Next, we need to create a subnet group, which is a collection of subnets, okay? So I'll call it this one, my first subnet group. And this will tell the ElastiCache service to run the nodes within the subnet group. So we'll choose our main VPC, default VPC, and we already have 3 subnets created and selected by default. And then click on next. We can enable encryption at rest using a key if we wanted to, as well as encryption in transit if we wanted to. And then if we do enable encryption in transit, then we can get some access control. So we can, for example, use Redis auth for user access, in which you would specify a token in here, and that token could be used to connect to the cluster. But I will disable it. And next, we can go into backups. So do you want to enable automatic backups or not on your database? I will disable it. Maintenance windows to perform the upgrades as well as the backups. Logs, tags, so it's very similar to RDS, you will notice. So everything is created. Let's go ahead and create our ElastiCache node, and there's only one, so it's a cluster of one node right now. My ElastiCache database is now created, and I can click on it, and if I had an application that I wrote with some code, I could actually use the primary endpoint, or if it was a read replica, a reader endpoint to allow to read from my cache, okay? Now, there is no easy way for me to show you how to connect to an Redis cache because it's not that easy, and you need to actually write some code, and that would be too complicated. But from an AWS perspective, from this console, you can see all the details as well as nodes, metrics, logs, network security, and so on. And it looks just like RDS because yes, it is very similar service to RDS, but it's intended for Redis and Memcached. So the last thing you have to do is take this Redis cluster, action, and then delete. And then do you want to back up? No, you just type the name of the cluster, delete, and you're done with this hands-on. Okay, that's it. I hope you liked it, and I will see you in the next lecture.